My name is Hannah Terrace. I'm a lecturer at School of Education, Murdoch University, and today I'll be talking about authentic learning with technology. In this presentation, I'll cover three main points. I'll begin by describing what's happening in education and technology in a wider scale in today's world, and move on to the next question, which is why should we use technology in education in the first place? And finally, we come to the main point, I guess, which is how can we use technology in a more meaningful way in our education. Um, First of all, a little bit of context of what's happening in the world of today. As we all know that digital technology development it's all of these things. It's been really rapid and and uh, and it's something that is developing, changing, evolving as we speak. And now, as we think, just even 5 years back, it was all uh, completely different. Think 10 years back, it was hugely different. Like, we didn't have things like Facebook, we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have many of the things that are an integral part of many of our daily lives. And can we even remember what the world was like without access to the internet, without uh, smartphones, without mobile phones, without any of these things? And still, when we think of it, these are all developments that have taken place in the not so distant past. This is something that is just accelerating, you could say. So digital technology development it's global. These things are happening everywhere in our world. Rapid, as we just talked about, very widespread, ubiquitous, continuous, and it's just definitely not going away. I remember I've been involved in education technology development and using education technology um, in uh, in different sectors of education for the past 16 years. I started in education technology at the very late uh, 90s, last millennium, really. And at that point, I remember many educators thinking that this would be something that just goes away and it's just a phase and then everything returns back to normal. And as we know today, this is not the case. And it is the new normal. So it's definitely something that is not going away, whether we like it or not. Another thing about technology, especially in the educational context, is that buzzwords come and go. Um, if you make a search, a database search on journal articles, conference papers written on specific technologies, you can almost uh, tell the year without seeing the year of publication by what technology they are describing, because some of these technologies have just been uh, really uh, when the technologies have been introduced next year, the year after that, uh, they've already been discussed in the educational context. For example, you can you can see when the iPads came to market, and a few years back, everyone was writing about using social media in education. Um, Now, today's big buzzwords are things like game-based learning, gamification, and no one is writing about learning objects anymore. But that was something that was um, the buzzword of the day some years back. So it wouldn't probably be wise to think about this whole phenomenon of education technology in terms of just some particular technologies. Rather, it would make more sense to think about the technological development as a whole, and dig a bit deeper than some given particular technologies, and examine the phenomenon in a wider sense. And the same goes for using technology in education. I'm not saying that you shouldn't pick and choose an appropriate technology and use it. Uh, no, not at all. You can't do it any other way. What I'm just saying uh, is that rather than concentrate on a single technology and learn that technology inside out, we would be wise to think about the use of educational technology from a wider pedagogical perspective. And then when new technologies are introduced or the existing ones are evolving, developing further, we have something more solid. We have a sort of a pedagogical anchor, so to speak, to ground us in learning, and we are not being tossed around with different technologies. Another nice example would be when I was still in Finland, where I'm originally from. I was teaching teaching a unit where the students had to do a larger scale technology project. They were using technology for that project, and the students were free to choose any technologies that they thought would suit that particular learning context. And some of them chose Google Wave. Does anyone remember Google Wave? Google Wave was a technology that Google was developing a few years back, and at that time, that was the buzzword. That was the big thing of the day. But during the course of the unit, Google discontinued the development of Google Wave, and all of a sudden we're in a situation where the students are using a technology that is being discontinued. This is just to illustrate that technologies come and go, but there are certain learning principles and other things than the technology itself that stay, and we're getting to that. I'll speak about it in a minute. Rather than thinking about any particular technologies, we could take a look at what the Australian curriculum says about ICT and the use of technology. And here you can read that it's actually in the curriculum. It's not just a hype. It's not just buzzwords. It's in the curriculum, and therefore we can't turn a blind eye on it. We read here that in the Australian curriculum, students develop ICT capability as they learn to use ICT effectively and appropriately to access, create, and communicate information and ideas, solve problems, work collaboratively in all learning areas at school and in their lives beyond school. So this is pretty big. This goes way beyond using technology to deliver content in a different form. So we see here that students are not to be consumers of ICT mediated content. They are to use ICT themselves to create, to communicate, to solve problems, to work collaboratively. And this is a really important thing to bear in mind. And don't lose this thought and we move on in this presentation, because we are grounding this in these ideas that are present in the curriculum. So what's happening in the world of education technology? I don't know if you're familiar with the Horizon reports. Some of you might be. If not, I would highly recommend you to take a look. You can Google them, or you can use the links provided in this slideshow. The Horizon report is an annual report put together by the New Media Consortium, and it predicts the future trends in the immediate future, a year or less, 2 to 3 years, and 4 to 5 years from now. So it's sort of they are examining mega trends and predicting what's happening in technology and learning in the near future. And in this slide, this is taken from the European edition. There's higher ed, there's K-12, and there's the American, the European, and the Australian edition. But for the Australian one, we didn't have a K-12 one available, so this is taken from the European edition. So here we can see that in 1 year or less, they're predicting that cloud computing, tablet computing will become more widespread. We already see this happening. iPads are becoming, and other tablets are becoming more and more common in the classrooms. Then a bit further from that, we see games and gamification, mobile learning. We already see these things happening as well, but they're predicting that they become more widespread, more common in the future years. And from 4 to 5 years, we could predict to see things like more personalized learning, virtual and remote laboratories, and evolution of online learning. So take a look at these, have a read. They're really interesting and give a good overview of what's happening in EdTech around the world. And now, of course, with all this happening and bearing in mind that it has happened rather quickly, many teachers might go like this. Oh my goodness, what's coming next? I just learned to use this technology and now you're already introducing that. How can we keep up with what's happening? And it might be frustrating, it might be stressful, and some educators would rather ignore the whole thing and be like, no, I don't want to have anything to do with this. So that's one extreme reaction, and I know educators who react this way, and let me tell you, I understand them very well, because sometimes I feel like this. Then there another reaction would be to embrace all new things without reservations and sort of treat technology as the silver bullet that just solves every problem in the world. And I don't think any of these two approaches is really a very fruitful one. Because sometimes technology doesn't solve all the problems. Sometimes it doesn't really even change all that much, does it? This picture is from Second Life. Does anyone still remember Second Life? It was a big thing a few years back, and many schools and universities established their own campuses and buildings and areas in this 3D virtual environment. And Uh, this picture is from a classroom in Second Life, and as you can see here, uh, it's although it's a virtual environment, it's not a physical classroom. So the students would come here in using their avatars and um, moving into the classroom with the help of the avatars. It's still strangely familiar, isn't it? It's the same desks, it's the same chairs. It's a nicer view maybe than from many other classrooms, but essentially the core of it, it's still the same. It's not all that different. It's improved accessibility. Absolutely, you can um, come to this come to this classroom from wherever you are in the world. But if we don't think about access issues here, but just concentrate on the pedagogy, on teaching and learning side of it, it's essentially exactly the same as coming to a classroom in a physical environment. The teacher is standing in the front. The students are sitting at the desks in rows facing the front where content is being delivered, and they are listening to it. So although it's highly sophisticated technology, the learning side remains the same. So we see that new and fancy packages often reveal the same old content, and this is true with the so many technologies. Um, Take for example the smart board, which is another recent development, and compare it with the old-fashioned blackboard. The type of thing where you write with a chalk. You can use the smart board, although it's sophisticated technology again, but you can use it exactly the same way you used the old-fashioned blackboard, or the overhead projector with transparencies, remember those? Or PowerPoint. You can use all of these technologies in exactly the same way to deliver content to students who are sitting there and listening to the teacher speak. And the same goes for learning management systems, really. Essentially, the way you often see them used is as content repositories. So ways to deliver the same thing to you that in the olden days would have come in the form of a book or a handout or other sort of printed material. So again, it's just another way of delivering content. And I would like you to stop and think about the ways that you as a student, maybe, have been exposed to education technology. Has it been the way I just described, or has there been something more to it? Or if you teach with technology, think about the ways you use technology in your classroom or with your distant students, or whatever way you use it. Is it the way I just described, or is there something more to it? Now, this is the time. Sorry about that. It looks like my image here is blocking the text. Okay, now you should be able to read it. We get back to the important question. We get back to curriculum. So what are the skills that the students need in order to be successful in today's and tomorrow's world? And start from there. So these things are again from the curriculum, and these you can find in literature, in curricula of different countries. They're sometimes referred to as 21st century skills or soft skills or metacognitive skills. But there is consensus very widely that especially in today's world, students will need critical thinking skills, problem solving skills. The role of collaboration is just becoming more and more significant. Creative thinking and innovation skills. And of course, these are not new skills. It's not that these skills were invented in the 21st century. It's just that in today's world, with everything that we have happening in our world, globalization, the economical issues, all sorts of big, wicked challenges that face today's world, the importance of these skills is just increasing. Digital literacy skills as well. Media literacy, ICT skills, safe and responsible ethical use of the internet. These are really important skills that weren't there. These are new skills. These skills weren't there when I went to primary school. And life skills. Remembering the curriculum, it said that the students should be able to use these skills at school, but also in a wider sense in other areas of life. Flexibility, social skills, or intercultural communication is becoming increasingly important. Self-directed learning, all these skills. Now, the big question is, sorry, I was a bit hasty there, is the way that we are using technology helping students acquire these skills? That's the big question. That's what you should be thinking about. Is the way I'm using technology in education helping students acquire these skills? Or is the way I'm using technology in education really just helping students acquire content in a slightly different way than before? That's the thing to ask ourselves. And that's why we differentiate between two approaches to using technology in education. One of them being learning from technology. And this is the approach that I've just been speaking about, delivering content in a slightly different way. I don't know if you're familiar with this lovely old invention, Skinner's teaching machine and programmed learning. Some of you might remember that. If not, I strongly recommend you go to YouTube and Google this, or use the link if you have access to this slideshow. The picture here is a link to this video. It's a fantastic example of using technology as a content delivery channel, and although it was a long time ago, the way we are using many technologies today, for example, the way we use learning management systems, is not all that different. Very often, what happens is that content is being delivered, and then students are required to answer a quiz, and then they will get feedback on whether the answers were right or wrong. There's nothing wrong as such in this approach. Let me get that just to be clear with that. I'm not saying that there aren't things that you should memorize. There still are, and there are things where you have a right answer and a wrong answer. But in most, and I would say most, in most areas of life, that's not the case. And memorizing the right answer is not the same thing as critical thinking. It's not the same thing as creative thinking. It's just memorizing the right answer, which has value in its own right, but we should be taking the learning experience a bit further than that. Therefore, the other approach, which is referred to as learning with technology, is a more suitable way for doing that. In this approach, technology is not used as a content delivery channel. Rather, it's used as a cognitive tool. So what does it mean when technology is being used as a cognitive tool? Now, think about the child here who's using this iPad. The child is using the iPad to create something. There is a product underway. The kid is probably not thinking about, hey, or concentrating on the iPad, the technology itself. He's concentrating on the product, using the technology as a cognitive tool to create something. So that's a simple way of putting it. You could be using technology as a cognitive tool to help you communicate ideas with others, or you could be using it to solve problems. In all of these things, the point is that the technology is doing much more, or rather, you are doing much more with the technology than just passively consuming content and maybe filling out some quiz questions. so it's used in a very different way. And this, as you see here, is in line with the curriculum. Remember what it said in the one of the earliest slides about the curriculum? So these are the sorts of tasks that students would be expected to do with technology. Create and present information, solve problems, make decisions, communicate, express themselves creatively, do some empirical reasoning. Information access is one of them, but only one of them. So we shouldn't be giving an over-emphasis on the first one and just completely ignore all these other dimensions. Now, how can we make all this happen? This is where authentic learning comes to play. Now we're moving to the last part of this presentation, where I talk about authentic learning and how you can use this pedagogical model to facilitate the kind of learning that we were just talking about, that aligns with the curriculum in 21st century skills, where technology is being used as a cognitive tool and as a partner in learning rather than a delivery channel. Well, authentic learning is a pedagogical model. Of course, the word authentic can be defined in many different ways, but in here, what we are referring to is a defined pedagogical model consisting of these 9 elements that has been researched, developed, and refined by Professor Jan Harrington and her colleagues. And I'm just going to give a brief overview of these 9 elements and how you can use these elements and this framework to design learning tasks that help students develop the sorts of skills that we were just talking about. So, what is authentic learning like? What are these 9 elements? The first one is authentic context. Authentic learning takes place in an authentic context. In providing an authentic context for learning, you provide the purpose and the motivation for learning. So this is more than simply providing some real life examples or case studies, things like that. Rather, an authentic context provides the sort of the setting for the learning to take place. And it's important that this context sort of resembles the environment and the situations where this information that is being learned is actually going to be used in real world. It's also important that the authentic context, or the context of learning, is not too linear and not oversimplified. This is a trap that we often fall into. We sort of want so badly to help our students understand it, the information and learn it, that we try to make it as simple as possible with step-by-step instructions and a linear environment where they can't possibly get lost. But what also happens is that they can't possibly learn problem-solving skills. They can't possibly learn critical thinking skills because the learning environment is too simple, too simplified, too step-by-step, too linear for them to practice those skills. I'm not saying here that the learning environment should be messy and difficult to navigate in a sort of a maze like the picture here implies. No, I'm rather saying that it should be realistic, and real life situations, real life contexts tend not to be very simple. And rather than making it as simple and step-by-step as possible, the authentic learning framework introduces another element, which we get back to in a few moments, and that's scaffolding and coaching. So keep that in mind. I'll get back to it. So that's the authentic context. And if we're using an online learning environment, if we're talking about e-learning, this environment should not be, again, too linear, too step by step, but it should be something that the students can explore at length and can go back and forth and can navigate in a way that is suitable for their learning. Probably the most important part of the authentic learning model is the authentic task. And this is the part that the student does. So we know that learning actually doesn't happen when someone else does something for me. It happens when I do something and learn by doing it. And that's the idea of an authentic task. Authentic tasks are, again, as I just said with the authentic context, they are not linear and step by step, chunked into easy manageable bits that deprive the students from the possibility to problem solve or create their own solutions. Rather, they are complex and open-ended. They have a strong real-life relevance, and again, real-life relevance that goes beyond real-world examples. It has to have relevance to the learner herself. I like to use an example from my own childhood. There was a time when I wasn't particularly good at mathematics, and the problem was that I couldn't always understand what the point of learning those things really was, and there was nothing in my world that I could sort of connect the things with. And I remember that the real life examples that we had, they were of the type, like, for example, the flagpole is X meters tall and the sun is shining from this and this angle, and the problem was to find out how long the shadow would be. Well, who cares? What does it matter how long the shadow is? If I want to know how long the shadow is, I'll just measure it. I don't want to know how long the shadow is. So although it was a real world example, it did not have real life relevance to me. It did not have relevance to my life, and I wasn't interested in that problem. So an authentic task would have relevance uh, for the learners and the world of the learners. Also, um, authentic tasks are completed over a longer period of time. You can't complete an authentic task during 1 hour in the classroom. Now, these are typically they are more project type of things that carry over a longer period, weeks rather than hours. So obviously, you can't really have an authentic task going on for all subjects, all times. Well, let me take that back. You might, you might in some environments, yes, but well, yeah, they are not, uh, worksheets. They are not like watch this video about an authentic thing happening for authentic children or whoever, and then fill out these worksheets. That would not be an authentic task. Rather, they are more project-like. They also end in a polished product that has value in its own right. So an essay that you return to the teacher is not a polished product that has any relevance in its own right. It should be something that has importance and relevance outside the classroom context. Okay? So that would be an authentic task in a nutshell. Authentic learning also provides the students with access to expert performances and modeling of processes. And what this means is that the students will need to have access to how an expert would solve a particular kind of problem. And it's important to bear in mind that an expert can be another learner. It does not have to be a teacher. You know that in almost any learning situation, you will have students with varied levels of ability, and it would be a great idea to also use the expertise of the more knowledgeable peers in learning. It's important to provide the opportunity for sharing of stories and experiences, because these are how you can access and become aware of the expertise of your peers. Authentic learning also allows for multiple perspectives. Therefore, it cannot rely on a single point of view. It cannot be reliant on one textbook only or one teacher's lectures only. Rather, there should be different perspectives introduced in the form of different media resources, different experts, perhaps competing theories, the perspectives that come from the learners themselves, to make it more authentic. Collaborative knowledge construction is an important part of authentic learning as well. And here, I want to make a difference between collaboration and simple cooperation. Whereas collaboration would be something where a group of people are working towards a common goal all the way along. Whereas in simple cooperation, sort of I take this part, John takes that part, and Mary takes that part, and in the end we come together and put our 3 parts together, and we're not necessarily happy at all with the result because we didn't work together from the beginning. We only put our different parts together at the end. So that would be simple cooperation. And we all know that collaborative learning is difficult, it's challenging, and we can't assume that the students will automatically and immediately know how to do it. Also, there needs to be incentive for doing it. It can't be just, there has to be assessment on a group level as well. And again, bearing in mind that that students will not automatically know how to collaborate in a constructive manner. An authentic learning environment provides opportunities for articulating your growing knowledge. That would be opportunities to speak and write about your growing understanding, negotiate meaning with peers, and this can easily be done by presentations, discussions, debates, arguments, panel discussions, things like that. We all know that that when you need to teach something to someone else, you actually clarify it to yourself, and it helps your learning, maybe even more than the other person's learning. So we want to give these opportunities for our students. There's also opportunities for reflection to compare ideas, make decisions, reflect both in action while you're doing the other way around, in action and on action. So you reflect back and you reflect while you're doing something. And there should also be opportunities for group reflection, because that's another valuable way of learning. Now, I mentioned coaching and scaffolding. So the role of the teacher in authentic learning is not to transmit knowledge in a didactic way. Rather, it would be to support the students with feedback, guidance, and answers to questions at critical points. Scaffolding is really important, especially at the beginning of a task, so that the students will get the support that they need, but they do not require hand-holding. They should be given the freedom and the challenge of navigating their own way as well, and negotiate meaning and solve problems in their own way. And finally, come to authentic assessment. I really like the picture here. Authentic assessment is integrated in the learning process. It's not just one exam at the end. It's ongoing, and it's tied to the authentic task. So you're being assessed on the task that you're completing, both individually and in groups if the task has been a collaborative one. So it's something that is integrated and goes along the way, rather than something different, something where you need to remember things at the end of the study program. So to learn more about authentic learning, I strongly recommend this fantastic website put together by Professor Jen Harrington. This picture itself is a link, or you can just Google this. There are more resources on the different elements, examples, papers, books, and also a fabulous authenticity matrix that you can use as a tool when you create an authentic learning task. This is a really helpful thing. And again, this is also a link in this presentation. And finally, another resource that might be very useful is Technology Toolbox for Educators wiki, created by my colleague Jenny Parker. The Technology Toolbox is an incredibly useful, really rich resource that has information on everything about education technology, really. You'll learn about different learning approaches and strategies, copyright issues, as well as, of course, heaps of different technologies that can be used for education. So I warmly recommend for you to take a look at this resource. Well, thank you so much for your attention during this presentation. I hope that you found this useful, and that you've
found answers to your questions about authentic learning and meaningful learning with technology. If you have any questions or any comments or just want to engage in conversation, please feel free to contact me. Here are my contact details, terrace@murdoch.edu.au. Thanks again, and hope to hear from you soon. Thanks. Bye.